The season finale of the Gilded Age might have ended on a high note for Gladys, who finally walked down the aisle as a newlywed duchess, but for her mother Bertha, the celebrations didn't last long. After throwing an extravagant ball to mark her daughter's marriage and celebrate her husband's recovery from being shot in the previous episode, Bertha thought all was well. But her joy quickly crumbled when George, her powerful railroad tycoon husband, made a shocking move, walking out on her before the night was even over. His reason? He couldn't stomach the idea that his beloved daughter had been forced into a marriage she didn't truly want. This bombshell moment left fans buzzing. And now, creator Julian Fellowes and executive producer Sonia Warfield have shared exactly why George made such a dramatic decision and what it really says about his marriage to Bertha. They also shed light on Bertha's controversial choices for Gladys earlier in the season, choices that some modern viewers might find hard to accept. But according to them, Bertha's actions made perfect sense for the time period, and judging her by today's standards completely misses the point. When asked whether this season was designed to highlight how oppressive that era was for women, Fellowes pushed back. In his view, it wasn't simply hell for all women, it was hell for weak women. History, he explained, has always been kinder to those with strength, influence, and determination, even in restrictive societies. He pointed to real-life figures like Alva Vanderbilt, who reigned over Gilded Age high society and navigated its social games with remarkable skill. Alva's story mirrors Bertha's in some ways. She initially chased status and arranged her daughter's marriage to a duke, but later became a force in women's rights, leaving a genuine mark on history. Warfield agreed that society has evolved, but she also noted that in the late 1800s, marriage was one of the few avenues through which women could wield real power. In Bertha's eyes, marrying Gladys to the Duke wasn't cruel, it was strategic. In fact, Warfield revealed that in a post-screening discussion with a group of successful women, opinions were split, half sided with Bertha, saying they too had made tough decisions for their children's futures, while the other half worried for Gladys' happiness. For Bertha, this marriage wasn't just about status, it was about securing Gladys a platform to influence the world in a way a comfortable banker's wife never could. Fellowes also stressed that judging Bertha by modern standards misses the historical context. In her world, this was a legitimate path to power. Moreover, Bertha helped push societal boundaries in other ways, such as making divorce socially acceptable in America decades before it was accepted in Europe. She brought divorced women like Aurora and Mrs. Astor's daughter back into high society, empowering them in a way that was groundbreaking for the time. Still, George saw things differently. While he went along with Bertha's plans and even financially supported the Duke, he resented himself for compromising his principles. Fellowes explained that this was the real wound. George felt manipulated into acting against his instincts by the woman he loved. For Bertha, the match was a win-win. Gladys and the Duke seemed happy, the alliance was socially beneficial, and life could go on. But for George, it wasn't that simple. The fact that Bertha could influence him into doing something he fundamentally disagreed with shook him to the core. George's inner turmoil was also shaped by the brush with death he experienced earlier in the season. Fellowes pointed out that many real-life robber barons of the Gilded Age had similar moments of reckoning toward the end of their careers. Ruthless businessmen like Henry Clay Frick and Andrew Carnegie often tried to rewrite their legacies through philanthropy, funding art collections, libraries, and charities. George's close call forced him to examine how he wanted to be remembered, and Bertha's social machinations clashed with the values he was beginning to reflect on. The finale didn't just focus on George and Bertha's rift. Fellowes also addressed the tragic death of Oscar's lover, which was staged to highlight the grim realities faced by gay men during that era. In 1885, homosexuality was still illegal, and even in private grief, one had to hide emotions to avoid scandal. Fellowes wanted to show that the percentage of LGBTQ individuals back then was no different from today, but most were forced into lives of secrecy and emotional isolation. The death scene, caused by a buggy accident, symbolized not just loss, but the inability to publicly mourn. Meanwhile, Peggy's storyline this season brought a different kind of social issue to the forefront. colorism. Warfield introduced the character of Elizabeth Kirkland, played by Felicia Rashad, to explore discrimination within the black community itself. Elizabeth embodies light-skin privilege and carries the influence of a black Mrs. Astor in Newport's social circles. Warfield, drawing on her own family experiences, highlighted how attitudes towards skin tones still carry deep cultural weight. She explained that both her light-skinned and darker-skinned grandmothers were preoccupied with how much sun she got as a child, a subtle but telling example of how these biases have persisted over time. By the end of the finale, The Gilded Age had left its audience with a lot to unpack. George's walkout wasn't just about one marriage, it was about personal integrity, shifting priorities, and the struggle between love and principle. Bertha's choices may have been calculated and even cold by today's romantic ideals, but in her world, they were acts of empowerment. And in true Fellows fashion, the show made sure that even as the costumes dazzled and the ballrooms sparkled, the characters' personal dramas stayed deeply human and relatable. Whether George and Bertha can find common ground in the next season remains to be seen. What's certain is that their conflict captures one of the show's biggest themes: the tension between ambition and morality, and the different ways men and women navigated the unforgiving social ladder of the Gilded Age.